Another question that we've had regarding the actual writing up of the dissertation is, do I still reference in the same way? And what is an acceptable amount of referencing? Peter?
Well, I didn't quite get this, because what is an acceptable amount of referencing? Whenever you've used somebody else's ideas, which is entirely 100% likely. The idea that you would have come up with something without having consulted anybody else's ideas at all, we probably wouldn't understand what you were talking about. So of course, as Newton said, you're standing on the shoulders of giants, and you want to reference when you get an idea from somebody. And that's not just when you're quoting, but when you've taken a particular idea from a particular article, journal article or textbook and so on, you'd reference. In respect of quoting, which I think that's what that meant, what's an acceptable amount of quoting? Again, I have a feeling that might be school specific. Generally speaking, my rule of thumb is don't use other people's words to make your argument. Sometimes, admittedly, they will have put it so much better than you could. That's fine. But if you do that and you quote somebody, you're still going to have to write underneath what you take that to mean and how that is relevant to what you're saying. So you can't just subcontracting all the hard thinking to people whose business it is to do hard thinking and think, brilliant, I've made a thesis. So that's my sort of take on that.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I'd echo that really. I mean, don't just string together direct quotations from other sources. We trust most people that they can copy things out of a book. We actually want to know what you think about these things and whether you've understood them. So we'd like you to paraphrase them really, to explain them and to comment on them, to say whether you agree, whether you disagree, why. That's really sort of the level you should be working at. As we said, there might be a slight difference in terms of subjects. For instance, for some humanities-based subjects, I would say, for instance, it's quite acceptable to have direct quotations from a primary source, whereas you should avoid direct quotations from secondary sources. Always remember, though, again, just I think worth pointing out, even when you do paraphrase, when you or summarize or explain something you've read in the secondary literature, make sure you reference it. Make sure you put a footnote or an in-text reference, whichever referencing system you're using in your subject. Make sure you acknowledge where you got that idea from.
I was once at a seminar where a postgraduate student delivered a paper, and I quote, "This is what Jacques Lacan said about uncertainty, blah, 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 blah," a lengthy quotation. "This is what Michel Foucault said about uncertainty, blah, 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 blah," extensive quotation. "This is what somebody else says about uncertainty, blah, 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 blah." You see where this is going. And at the end of the seminar, one particularly annoyed lecturer raised his hand and said, "Okay, so where do you come in?" And I thought, well, that's a good question. I like that. So I'm going to use that now. So ask yourself, where do I come in into the literature review? You come in as an evaluator of other people's work. You summarize in your own words and you express your opinion within the constraints of your topic on those people's writings.
I think if any question is about how to reference as well, there's information both in the library and from the study advisor scheme as well, isn't there? But although there is a standard format for referencing, different disciplines do use different matters. So it is always best to check with your tutor as well.
I know there was a thing on Udo somewhere that we were pointed towards where you could actually you actually did it yourself, so it showed you how to do it, and then you had to put the correct pieces of information in the correct order, and I found that was really good as a sort of a way of reminding me how to do it, because it had been a while between masters, and so I'd sort of forgotten how to reference, and that was really useful.
Plato.
Yeah, that was really good.
And Plato is accessed through the main welcome page, isn't it,
Yeah,
of Udo once you've logged in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also on the library web pages. It's an interactive tutorial to guard you against plagiarism.
Okay.
Brilliant, thank you. I've just found something out.
Yeah.